Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Webinar Wednesday. I love doing these sessions about once a month where we get an opportunity to sit down with you, give you a little bit of quick training, some action items that you can take right away to drive growth in your business, to put a little bit of structure and infrastructure in place, and also just ease you through some of these crazy and difficult times that we've been in. So I want to welcome everyone who's joined us in Zoom so we can do our kind of after webinar chit chat, talk, and support. And for anyone who is joining us live on our social media channels, it's great to see you here, as well as I can't wait to see how many people watch this as a replay. All right, so today's session, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the idea that you want to start considering building kind of repeatable business. When you think about growth, when you think about what you can do during these times, when you think about how you can be nimble and flexible, and also just in general, what you should be focused on, one thing I want to make a case for today is the idea that some portion of your marketing should truly be dedicated to your existing customers. One of the challenges that I've seen for a lot of people who run small businesses, a lot of people who are solopreneurs, a lot of people who've been really had big setbacks this past year because of everything that's happening with the pandemic. And just in general, it's been a difficult time with many of us losing family members, many of us being impacted, maybe even being sick yourself with corona, that the idea is you're trying to figure out where and what to focus on next as we start to look at maybe the possibilities of things opening up, as we start to see the possibilities of what could come in our future. I want to make sure that you don't just rush out to find that new customer, that you remember that they're existing customers who support you, believe in you, and have been there for you maybe this entire time, or even supported you through this pandemic, that you don't miss the opportunity to build bridges there, that you don't miss the opportunity to really grow your business. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because there's so many different ways to do that. Now, for some of you, this may be the first time you're joining me for a webinar, so welcome. I've been doing this for a while. I've been vegan for about 15 years. I started the company in 2009, and this is really about a passion I have. I do these free webinars once a month because I always want people to kind of have a free resource that they can check into and get inspiration, get ideas, or even in some cases, reminders of things that you can do in your business, things that you can do to really drive growth. And I'm hoping that this session, if this is the first time here, this is a great opportunity for me to, I guess, touch you in a way that kind of inspires you to take some action and try something that maybe you haven't been doing. Now, one thing I love to talk about in this webinar is sometimes when I pose the idea of existing customers, it becomes this concept of, is it existing versus new customers? And one thing I want to make sure you take away today is it's not about verse. It's not one versus the other. It's not about necessarily how you want to manage those priorities. What I want to just make sure is that at times your existing customers are in that number one slot. And then other times your new customers or new customer marketing will be in that number one slot. So the idea is that it should rotate throughout the year. And if you've realized that maybe you haven't been spending as much time with your existing customers, maybe it's time to put them in that number one spot. If you've been struggling with getting new customers, maybe it's time to actually revisit and say, should I be focusing on existing customers? And when I say existing customers, I'm truly talking about people that have been customers for years, customers that have purchased from you, whether it's 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, depending on how long you've been in business, or maybe it's someone who purchased from you last month, last week, or 2 months ago. The idea is that there's a different type of person that you can prospect in your marketing. And often when you're doing your marketing, you're often talking to people who are learning about your brand, who are becoming aware of what you offer, or is trying to understand your product or service. But when you think about an existing customer, they know the value. They've already purchased. They've already, in many cases, loved what they purchased, whether it's a service or whether it's a product. And the idea is, can you use that existing relationship to do more? Can you take that existing relationship somewhere else? And can those existing customers for you become an opportunity for your business? Now, I don't mean that you're going to be opportunistic. The idea is that existing customers can open doors for you in your business that new customers may not be able to do as easily. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the idea that you have these really truly interesting, and in some cases maybe dynamic relationships with your customers, and maybe it's time to tap into that and see what you can do. So when I talk about tapping into that, when I talk about the existing customers, what I want you to start to think about is the role that existing customers can play in your business for growth. So before we get into the tactical stuff, how to market, what to send out, I want to make sure you understand that there are multiple roles that they can play. There are multiple ways that they can help you. And one thing to consider, one thing to think about is that when you have an existing relationship with a customer, the idea is the role that they can play can be probably one of these four. There are a couple of other I could even add to the list, but I wanted to prioritize here. So when I prioritized, I picked these specific four. And for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think there's a huge opportunity to have your existing customers help you grow. And a lot of that's through things like direct referrals, or even kind of bigger programs like affiliates, ambassadors. They're all in the same kind of process. They just work a little bit differently. But the idea is that someone can actually offer someone else or introduce you to someone else or to another customer through their network. And the idea is when you're trying to grow, sometimes it's about them buying again, but sometimes it's about your existing customers help you fuel that word of mouth marketing. And the idea is that you're not asking them to do your work for you, because there's work that needs to be done for all of us from a marketing standpoint. But when you start to engage with your customers and have discussions about how they can help you refer, how they can help you reach new audiences, by having that discussion and potentially putting that ask out there, that might be an easy or quick win for you when you're trying to get a little bit additional revenue coming through the door. All right. The other thing is existing customers are really valuable when it comes to testimonials and reviews. Now, for many of you, you may be like, yeah, of course. But if I had to ask you right now, and I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, I'm just going to have you mentally make this note, is think about when's the last time you asked for a testimonial. Now, I know people may be sending them to you. People may be all excited and they're sending you notes and saying, oh, that was some great food, or I'm just so glad the items that you sent me or I picked up from my meal plan or weekly deliver was amazing. Maybe someone's like, oh my goodness, I've been blown away by your cooking class. Can't wait to go to the next one. And you may be getting those emails. But what I find for a lot of us as business owners, we get so busy that we're not asking for those reviews. We're not asking for the type of reviews that you might need. And sometimes they're reviews that you could use in your email marketing. There could be reviews that you can use on your sales pages. It can be reviews that can be used in a different format that maybe an email that you had received unrequested may not work in that format. And what I mean by that is when we think about testimonials, I don't want you to kind of put yourself in a box. I don't want you to think about the idea that it's just a message that someone sends over and they say they like it. You can do a video testimonial, and a video testimonial could be somebody recording it on their own. But one of my favorite types of testimonials to put together is to actually do a live session with a customer and have them join you live and let them talk about your product or service, why they liked it, what they enjoyed about it. What's great about that is it takes the pressure off your customer to create this beautiful, amazing video to send you. It also creates an avenue for you to share that information. So if you're doing it a live Facebook broadcast, they can talk about their experience. your potential customers get to hear it directly from them, unedited, and that creates a level of credibility out there, as well as it's a fairly easy format for you to create it. Because after it's been recorded, after it's been broadcasted, you can download it, you can slice it up, edit it, do any of those things, or even just add it to your website, embed it into your website, into your sales page. Because if you can get it into something like YouTube, which you can download from Facebook, upload to YouTube, put it in as unlisted video, grab the embedded code, put it on your sales page. And even if it's a 15-minute, 20-minute session, that's the only thing I would say if you don't want it to get too long, is that you can just embed it on your sales page and people can watch it when they go there to buy your product, whether it's a physical product you sell, whether it's an online course that you sell, whether you sell coaching programs, maybe you do consults, or maybe what you do is you offer people the ability to do things like cooking classes or sign up for your live training through Zoom. What I want you to do, what I want you to think about in this environment is realize that there's so many different ways to leverage these existing customers for growth. And I don't want you to miss out on these opportunities. Now, I'm going to talk about in a few minutes how to get repeat purchases because that's a really big and viable opportunity. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned these others as well because sometimes they get forgotten and they're so valuable. Not only do you have a lot of customers that love what you do, and if you just gave them a lane to help you, they would love to do it. But also some of these other opportunities, they can truly become great marketing tools for you, and they're not hard to create. A lot of times when we think about the marketing, a lot of us get overwhelmed because we're like, oh, I got to do this, and then I got to do that, and I got to create this, and I got to create images, and so forth. But hosting a live session where you interview an existing customer, especially if you have done live before, that's not a heavy lift. If you're a person that does a lot of cooking classes, sending out 10 emails to students that you know enjoy and have liked your classes and trying to get some of those reviews back, those are just emails. You can create an online form. They can just type in the information on the online form or reply in an email. I like to use an online form because I think it's important to get a rating system when it comes to testimonials, but I don't have time to get into all those details today. If you have a question about it, just let me know. But what I like to do is make it a very simple process because when you're trying to drive this repeat business, especially nowadays, I don't want you to launch this whole new big project. I want you to really just find your way through using some of these roles to see if they can help create a bump in your sales and in your revenue. Okay. Now, the last one on the list, this is about asking your customers to help you develop future products. I love doing this. I'm doing this right now, and it was really a little bit nerve-wracking and a little scary for me, and I'll talk about it in the next slide. But the idea is when you want to launch a new product or service, instead of doing it alone, instead of coming up with the name, instead of deciding on the pricing, instead of deciding what's in the product and what's out of the product, or how detailed it should be, ask a couple of customers if they'd be willing to help. You can host a focus group. You could ask them for feedback. You could give them early access. You could, especially if you do something like cooking classes, you could do a preview cooking class. And if it's a new style or a new way of doing it, you can ask your existing customers to come to that cooking class and give you real-time feedback after that class. And then based on their feedback, you can tweak that class and then offer it out to the general public. So this is what I want you to do. I want you from today's webinar is to look at this list and pick one of these ways to consider engaging with your existing customers to drive growth. And I want you to only pick one for right now. It doesn't mean you don't come back and do these. I'm always about giving you options, but what I always want you to do when you take away and kind of step back from these webinars and from these sessions is I don't want you to feel like you have to do it all. I want you to always feel like you can pick and choose. So pick one of these, test it, get some of those results, and then you can always come back to this presentation later and come back and get number 2, number 3, and number 4. Okay. All right. Now let's talk a little bit more detail in some of these because I know sometimes when I throw out those suggestions, the question may be, how do I do it? How do I keep it simple? How do I make sure it doesn't turn into this 40 hours, 60 hours worth of work? And you may be like, Stephanie, I'm already exhausted. I don't really need more work. I need a way that's going to work for me and I can keep it simple and efficient. So, when you're thinking about doing something like affiliates or referrals or ambassador program, what I want you to do is not necessarily approach this as affiliate marketing, meaning you're setting up all these tracking codes, setting up a whole website, setting up affiliate software. We'll get to that. What I want you to do is take the first step. And what that means is starting with a pilot group. So therefore, thinking about 5, 6, maybe even 7 existing customers, something really small. Maybe if you're a transactional business, maybe it's a little bit bigger because maybe you need about 20 customers, but something that is not a huge amount of students. It's not a huge amount of customers. It's not everyone on your list, but start with a small group. And what I want you to do is just test with that group. I want you to think about what you already have in place that you could get set up in quickly. So I'm going to give you the idea of I want you to do anything that you decide to do based on today's webinar should take you 10 days or less to get it out there and see if you can get a couple of results. I know, doesn't that sound like really, really fast? But that's what I want you to do. I don't want you to approach this as a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day project. I just want you to start with the small in 10 days. Can I move the needle? And the idea would be in 10 days, could you get a couple of people to send out some referrals based on your request? And keep it simple. If you have an online store, just give them a coupon code. And anyone that they refer, if they use their coupon code, then you'll know that they get an affiliate credit for it. Now, just so everyone's kind of clear, affiliates or referrals, they're very similar, but they're a little bit different. Referrals normally means a person's just referring someone to you. There's normally not always a compensation involved. There's normally just kind of a general recommendation that, yeah, I'm willing to let people know that I've used you or worked with you, and I refer your services or business to another. Affiliate marketing, and traditionally on the ambassador side, there's some level of compensation. Affiliate marketing is normally some type of commission. They get X amount of money per person that signs up. An ambassador side, instead of maybe someone getting financial, what they may get is future discounts on your products or services. Now, once again, I just wanted to break that down so you knew what it was. But the reality is you don't have to launch them all. You don't have to do it all with a ton of commission. You don't have to give it all away. You can say to people, hey, I just want to test this out. Would you be willing to do it? Or if you want to start modest, give someone something that you can afford to give them. So for an example, if you're doing cooking classes, is it reasonable that you could give them, if they refer someone, they get a ticket to one of your future cooking classes? That way, it doesn't cost you a ton of money. They still get value because they believe in your cooking classes, and it's not necessarily a ton of revenue to pay out. Plus, remember, we're doing this with a small group, so you're not going to have like 100 links to track or 100 people to track. We're talking about starting with a small group so you can get a sense of, does this work? Does it create growth in my business? And then you come back, repeat it, and scale it. All right? Now, you can do it with coupon codes. You can do it with a direct link to your calendar, especially if you do a lot of consults. You can have people refer you and include a link to your calendar so they can book time with you. And when they click on that link, you could have a box. Normally when you do like a scheduling or online scheduling tool, I use Calendly. You can ask people for their name, their email address, and then you can have like little boxes they fill in, like reason for our meeting. And you can have another box that says, did anyone refer you? If so, drop their name in the box. And that way you can track it. Yes, it's a loose tracking of affiliate process. Absolutely. It's not something you're going to use when you roll this out to everyone. But to get up and running quickly and to get impact quickly, it's a great way to do it. The other thing people do sometimes is create emails and say, hey, I'm going to send my 6 customers this email. Then I'm going to ask them to send to a friend and then carbon copy me on it. So if someone is actually interested in your program, you may say, hey, are you willing to send this to a couple of people? If you are, just copy me on the email, the person that you send it to. Because if they copy you on the email, you'll be able to give them credit for the order, credit for the service, the program. And it's a very light approach. It's not a lot of work. They're just copying an email that you sent, basic text one, and then referring them over. And then the last thing I love to do is maybe co-host an event. If you like doing live sessions, if you do anything like webinars, instead of doing your own webinar, do a webinar with a customer, a webinar with someone who's your affiliate light version, and doing a session with them to talk about the product, the service, the idea, and what you're working on, and then dropping a link in the description of that session to encourage people to sign up is another great way to get up and running quickly. Now, for any of my folks who are in my Zoom session, if you're wondering, okay, Stephanie, I think I got the idea, but I want to understand how it applies to my business or how it can work for my business, just jump in the chat and drop in a quick question or let me know what your business is or how you're trying to apply something like this. And as we jump to the end, I'll make sure I address those questions for you. Okay. Now, the other thing to think about is the testing. I mentioned the idea that it's such a valuable tool to have people help you test a product or service that you're considering offering. And what I love to do is that when I'm offering something new, I love to ask for help. And I'm actually actively doing this right now. I love showing you guys things that, excuse me, that I actually do, because I know sometimes it can sound like or feel like this is just theory out there, but this is real for me. This is stuff that I do. Like right now, we're launching an online course. I'm changing kind of the software. I mean, I've done courses before, but the software's new. It's got different features. And I'm not sure if people like the features, they care about the features. I'm using them for the first time, so I'm trying to get the flow down. So for me, I opened up the entire month of March and say, okay, I'm gonna just do testing and ask people who are on my list, existing customers. Now we had such a great amount of people sign up. We opened it to a little bit larger group than our existing customers. But initially, we started with anyone who's on our email list and our existing students, and it's really helped me a ton. I can't tell you how much I learned from people posting their comments, questions they had that I hadn't even thought about, and even features that they're using that they're like, can it do this and can it do that? And now I'm able to validate before I launch it if it can do those things. So be willing to ask for help. Be willing to ask for clarity on what your products or services could be from your customers. You don't have to do it the way I did it, but I think it's such a great way for you to do it. Okay. Now we talked about testimonials earlier. I just want to show you an example of what I meant. This is the kind of form I like to put together, is where there's a basic form, you get the name, you get the email address. This one's an example if you're doing like a class, you may have in the drop down one of your cooking classes that you offer. Someone can click on it and they can show you, okay, it was for that class. And then you include a rating system. See those little stars down there? Now, you can't see the rest of this form. There's a box in there so people can like free form type in their testimonial and their ideas, which I think is so important. But the one piece I think people forget, and this is why I prefer to get emails through a form than through email, is because when most people are reading a testimonial, when most people are looking at it, they don't always read all the details. But if there's a rating system on your testimonials, a person can quickly see where people stand. It's kind of like a lot of the tools we use on sites like Amazon and so forth. When people can see, okay, you're getting 4 out of 5 ratings or 5 out of 5 ratings, what happens is someone can quickly assess how multiple testimonials, what they mean, and make them more confident in moving forward faster. So think about that, whether you send a request or something I like to do is check out social media, see if people have been tagging you. I get so surprised when people tag me and they talk about their experience with me. You can use that social media post as a testimonial that you share in emails, you share on their website. Just take a little screenshot of it. Now, I always ask people, even though they did it in a public setting and it's on Facebook, The idea is technically you should be able to use it, but I just think it's a nice courtesy. I'll send someone like a message through instant message or something like that and say, hey, do you mind if I use your post as a part of my promotional materials? And if they say yes, great, I go for it. Okay. But don't be afraid to ask for reviews, and don't be afraid to ask for people to respond quickly. I was doing a campaign, and when we were doing a campaign, what happened is someone approached me and said, hey, they wanted to do an interview. They wanted to send traffic to a specific page, which was different than my homepage. And what we needed was some additional testimonials and more about kind of a specific type of service that I was offering. And most of our testimonials on our site were about a different product or offering. So they said, hey, do you think you can have some testimonials? And I was like, maybe. So what I ended up doing is I sent an email out to a couple of my customers and I said, hey, this is what's going on. I have an opportunity. People are going to send people to a different site. And I wanted to put some testimonials for this product or service that you've had. Do you think you could send me something back by Tuesday or by Friday? And I said, if you can't, no worries, just send it when you can. But if you can get it to me that date, I really appreciate it. And I can't tell you, of the 10 people I emailed, 8 of them got it back to me by that date. And a lot of that is just because I asked. So don't be afraid to ask. Remember, you have a relationship with people. Now, I don't want you to bully people into it or push them to do what you want them to do. I just want you to ask. And then once again, this is one of these strategies that eventually I want you to have a process around it. Eventually, I want you to have a process that allows you to gather testimonials and it becomes automated and it becomes a standard process. But start with a short list of people to send an email out to. Just test this out, get results, and then scale it up so that later you can do more. Okay? All right. Anybody have any questions so far? I'm gonna just check out my Zoom folks to just see if we have any questions in here so far. We're looking pretty good. Don't see any questions. Really don't see anything in the chat. How you guys think? Or maybe not a question. What do you think? Has anyone thought about the idea, or anyone, what do you think about those roles, those 4 roles I gave you? Anyone pondering one of those 4 roles as far as how you would like to leverage those existing relationships? Just drop it in the chat for me in Zoom because I'm really curious. If you're on social media, you can drop it in the social media comments as well, because I definitely think that's something to consider. All right, now we talked about the roles. And one of the roles we talked about is repeatable business. So when we talk about repeatable business, that means you need an offer to go to your existing customers. And for many people, they start to feel like they have to scratch their head. They start to struggle because they feel like, well, I already had them pay me. Why would they pay me again? Why would they pay me more? Why? And you kind of start heading down this logic that's a little bit different and maybe not the most productive logic. And what I want you to do is, when you're thinking about building a repeat business, when you're thinking about having people work with you again, I want you to reimagine your products or services. I want you to think about what you do and how can you take what you do and do it either slightly differently or offer additional support so that people get greater results. Because the idea is that you're really trying to make sure that you're giving people more value. So when I talk about repeatable business, when I talk about repeat customers, I don't mean that you're trying to sell people junk. I'm not about that at all. What I'm about is just making sure that if they already purchased from you, is there more that you can do to increase the value of that purchased item, whether it was a service or a product? Is there a way that you can offer something where the results they've already gotten with you, can they go deeper? Can they get greater results? And finally, one thing that we really forget about, yes, is that you have to sometimes create this buying community or kind of support around your buying community, because we tend to do that for our prospects. We tend to create Facebook groups for potential customers. We tend to send out a lot of material and do a lot for potential customers. But the idea is that maybe these advanced or these reimagined services or products can help build kind of this buyer community within your business that are people that continue to buy, continue to support, and kind of stay in the fold the entire time. Instead of them just kind of being one and done, the idea is that is there a kind of nature where they can stay connected? Now, I have some options on the left-hand side. So once again, I'm always going to ask you to participate in these webinars. I'm always going to ask you to think about what I mean. Is what would you reimagine? Like just off the top of your head. And I know you might change your mind later, but just going to ask you off the top of your head. And if you want to share in the chat, love it if you would. Please, please, please. If you're feeling shy, just grab a piece of paper and, write it on a piece of paper. But which of these kind of four-ish options would you consider as your reimagine? And let me just walk you through them, all right? When I talk about reimagining, sometimes it's a refresher or encore. If you do cooking classes, you can do an encore version or refresher of that cooking class to help people along the way. You can help people who are maybe new vegans, new to plant-based eating, people that you've helped, kind of get started. You can have an encore version of that class. Now, it won't look exactly the same, but the idea is if you have 100 people that have taken that class, why not come back to them and say, would you be interested in a refresher? For some of you who've maybe felt like the habits maybe haven't gotten there completely, you want a little bit more help on how to finesse your transition. You want to get a little bit more help on how to go from the kind of basics of where they were before and make sure they have a strong hold on it. You can offer a class, a course, or training that helps people just make sure what they already got, make sure you solidify it. Make sure you really get them there. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. Love it, Patricia. Going a little bit deeper, giving them new meal plans, giving them variations on meal plans, teaching them how to create that variation off of your meal plans and so forth. Absolutely. The other thing is you can go advanced. Say you do a cooking class where you're teaching people how to, maybe it's a vegan desserts class. Just going to use that as an example. And when you first start off, you're just teaching people the basics, how to get it done, how to create them, some of the substitutes, and so forth. But what you may do is decide, I want to do a class that's a little bit more advanced. This is a class that would only work if people took the first class. So it's kind of like the 101 versus 201 kind of version, if everyone's used to their kind of college days, the way courses are set up. But the idea is you could take people to a next level by teaching them another class, course, or training. And by doing this kind of next level or advanced, once again, you can go back to the pool of customers that purchased certain classes that you had, and now you can teach them that next level. If you taught people how to cook off of recipes, maybe you do an advanced class that teaches people how to build meals in their kitchen that are not recipe based. How do they get to that point where they can kind of feel out cooking? What are the dishes that they should start with when they're feeling out cooking? Maybe you're going to do an advanced class to teach people on how to prepare vegan meals and plant-based meals for bigger occasions, for activities that are coming up. We have holidays coming up in the US all the time and really around the world. I don't mean to make it sound like the US only has holidays, but the idea is that when people need to make those transitions, it's different when you're cooking every day, but when you want to cook for the 4th of July and grill, that's a different feel, maybe a little bit more advanced. When you want to cook for things like an Easter, when you want to cook for things like a Thanksgiving, and I know we're kind of far from Thanksgiving right now, but the idea is that you can teach people that advanced tier in anything you do. Now, I've been talking about food, but this applies for everything. This applies for anyone who's a fitness coach out there, teaching people how to go to that next level. Yoga instructor, teaching people how to go to that next level. Even if you're a coach, you teach people how to organize. If you teach people how to write, any of those things, you can teach them basic writing, but then you can come back and teach them other writing techniques. So always think about the idea is that there is an advanced nature to what you do, because for many of you, you're at the advanced level. Your students are at that beginning level. So think about the things that you do now, especially as someone who's a little bit more advanced, and that in what if you did a class for that type of person or a class to help people get closer to the expertise that you have. Okay. The other thing you can do is membership. Now, this applies for products and services. So when it comes to membership, is what you can do is if you sell a product, you can have a membership program that supports that product, that supports what you actually sell. You can also do this if you're in a service-based business where you have something where you do ongoing support. So maybe someone is buying from you, maybe they buy a cooking class series. Maybe they buy from you a coaching program. They do that for 3 to 4 months. They buy the core of it. But what they need is a way to be able to check in and ask questions. Maybe they want to have events where they cook something up and they have celebration dinners, or you guys have celebration sessions. That can be an ongoing support that you offer that someone may be willing to pay for. The same thing goes when you have products. If you sell something like vegan skincare, you sell something like vegan clothing, if you sell something like vegan makeup, the idea is many of these things people will buy when they remember to buy. But if you sell a product, think about, is there a way to sell it as a subscription? To sell it so that instead of a person buying it once a month or once a quarter when they remember, what if you sent them that item once a month or once a quarter? What if they were on automatic billing or automatic invoicing so that you can make that happen? That's what I want you to do to reimagine. Is there a way to do a gift option? All right. So now here it is. Jumping into the comments, jumping into the chat. Which one of these sounds interesting to you? Which one of these after today's session would you entertain? Would you think about reimagining as a way for you to engage? I just want to make sure that we're thinking about those things as we're moving forward, because I really feel like that's where the magic is taking this idea and applying it to your business. Okay, now, a couple of things I just want to mention. I want to get you fired up. I want you to get excited about this, but I don't want you to build everything new. So when you're doing advanced training, I don't want you to feel like it has to have a service that you've never offered before. Advanced training should still be the same structure you have. So if you're doing your classes on Zoom, then your advanced class is going to be on Zoom too. Your advanced class, if your traditional class is an hour and a half, maybe your advanced class may be 2 hours. But the idea is it's the topic that's different. It's not a total transformation of the software that you're doing. If you're selling a product, being meals, meal plans, any of those things, and you already have a process in place, and you want to either give them additional items that are included, use your existing software that you're using to charge. If you have a coaching business, I want you to take your coaching hourly rate and turn that into packages. I don't want you to feel like you have to redo everything, create everything from scratch. The idea is to use your existing structure to make that happen. So therefore, when you're creating this advanced version of your class, of your course, when you're sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to offer coaching, but now I'm going to give people packages, 4 sessions, 6 sessions. And honestly, I'm going to stop really one quick second on this one. Is imagine your package is bigger too. Because I find a lot of times when people offer 1 hour coaching, they'll offer like a 2 hour coaching session. And that's not big enough. I want you to go to 4, 6. I actually recently was trying to put packages together, and I love sharing this stuff because this is the stuff I struggle with it too. And someone had asked me if I had packages, and I was like, not really, but something I had been thinking about doing. And I went back and forth on it. And eventually what I ended up doing is I made a 10 session package. And at first I was like, I don't even know if they want this. This is kind of big, because they just asked if I had packages. And I was like, nah, let me try. I'm going to make bigger packages. I think I made 4, 7, and 10, I think is what I made. I have to double check on it, but it's about those numbers, right? And the reason I went for the higher session is because I really wanted to distinguish this from just my regular hourly session. And if I was going to give a discount, I needed enough sessions to truly offer a discount. Because offering just 2 hourly sessions, I still got to show up for the 2 hours. So if I do a discount off of that, there just wasn't that much margin in there. But when I started being able to look at it and say, if I sold 7 sessions or 10 sessions, there's enough margin in that, enough of a commitment there that I can make it work. So I bring that up because when I did it, someone bought my 10 session package. I couldn't believe it. I was blown away. And I want to say that to you because I don't want you to be afraid of those bigger packages. I want you to realize that they can really create opportunity for you. Okay. And we talked about this before. If you sell a product, encourage a subscription, whether it's a subscription box, whether it's monthly, quarterly, but something where you can get people on that rhythm. And if your website doesn't allow you to do subscriptions, but you do invoicing, then just do reoccurring invoicing. I don't want you to feel like you have to build it and create it and learn something new. Remember, this is just us getting it started. This is us proving this concept can work and help your business grow. So now that we talked about the offer, now that we talk about how you can do these things, let's talk about the approach. Now, guess what? I want the approach to be real simple. I want it to be something that's really easy for you to do. And when you think about your marketing approach, after we figured out what the role is, after we figured out if the role is repeat business specifically, and it's going to be one of those offers, I want you to send out a simple text message. And I say a text email with one request. The reason I call it kind of text emails with one request is that when we send out a lot of emails from a marketing standpoint, a lot of people think of them like newsletters. And you think of them as like graphics and there are all these different options and information in there. But if you're trying to drive repeat business, whether you're trying to get someone to sign up for that advanced tier or those packages, I want you to only send out text email messages. And I only want you to ask them if they're interested in the action that you want. I don't want you to give them like 20 things to consider and some blog posts and all those things. We want it to be tight and focused and really as short as it can be. So maybe a couple of paragraphs max. Because what you're trying to do is figure out if there's interest. I don't want you to spend a whole bunch of time trying to design it and lay it out and make it look perfect. Remember, these are people that have already committed. These are people that love you. These are people that have gotten results. So don't go over the top in trying to impress them again. Just believe in the relationship that you've already established with them and send them an email just like you would send a friend, just like you would send a family member, just like you would send somebody else that you know and have a relationship with, and ask them, would you be interested in doing the testimonial? Would you be interested in buying this advanced tier product? Would you be interested in signing up for my subscription? And that way you can get started without a ton of work. Okay. The other thing I like to do, and while I love to do this on existing customers, you could do this on a public Facebook page or in your LinkedIn profile. But I also think this works really well when you have like a Facebook group or something like that, is use platforms that you already have to promote these repeat purchases. So if you're doing something like a new product, something that's a little bit different, you're putting it on your website so people can sign up, but using what you already have in place. But so you don't have to spend so much time creating a video explaining it, creating FAQs that explain it, creating all these things that you might down the line do or you already have in place for your other products and services. Do a live broadcast. Do a live broadcast where you actually talk about it. Talk about how you're piloting it. Talk about how you're trying this and be honest about it and say, we've done all these cooking classes and I've always wanted to do an advanced class. I always wanted to teach people how to do this. I've always done a lot of fitness training, but I really wanted to help people that not only just want to get active, but maybe people who want to run their first 5K, who run their first marathon. And therefore, I'm thinking about offering this, and I wanted to see how many people are interested in it. Here's the price. Here's the link. Sign up if you're interested. And that way, you're doing it in a more casual way. It doesn't feel like a sales, like buy now, it's expiring and so forth. You're telling people why you're doing what you're doing, how it can help them, and you're asking them to commit to something that is new. And I think it's so important to let people know that, hey, this is new and something I'm developing, and I want you to join me as a founding member. I want you to join me as a, as a pilot member. I want you to join me as I bring this together. And therefore, people can raise their hand with excitement to join it when it's not perfect, when it's not something you've done 10 million times. They don't have that expectation because you didn't set that expectation. Now, this could be a live broadcast on Facebook or any of those platforms. It can be a webinar like this. It could be a live class. It could be a Zoom call. So don't worry about the term I'm using right now. The idea is doing something in a live format to talk about what you're doing, what you're offering, and giving people an opportunity to get their questions answered, and then asking them during the call, during the broadcast, during the session to sign up is a great way to get them engaged. Now, even after that, anyone who signs up or anyone's on your list, always send them an email afterwards with a link to the replay and then a link to sign up as well, and give them 48 hours, 72 hours to sign up and see if it works. These are the things you want to do. And this is how, in my mind, you can keep it simple. You can get this launched and you can get this out there and help people. So a couple of things to remember before we wrap up today's session. Don't try to do it all. Don't do all of my options on this list. Don't try to perfect it all. Don't create this massive project and timeline. What I want you to do is find a win in the next 10 days or less. And once you find that win, once you find the opportunity, because opportunity is really the potential is what we're trying to identify. It's kind of like, it's just kind of seeing a little bit of the light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. Then we can take a step back and say, okay, now I want to put this process in place. Now I want to repeat it and scale it. Because I think what happens for many of us is we think that it's a waste if we don't scale it the first time around. And I really believe that if you scope it down as a pilot, that first rendition of it can really be powerful, can really be directional in helping you know if this can work and if it needs to be tweaked. And then you move it into repeat or scale mode. Now, I don't want you to be in manual mode forever. I don't want you to be manually sending out emails asking for testimonials and all that stuff 6 months from now or 12 months from now. But if you're getting started, start here, get those results. And then because of the results will pour in, because the money will start to pour in, then you'll be able to have that to actually scale, whether it's to get help to build it, whether it's to give you a little bit of breathing room to work on it, but then you can move towards that space. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm going to take questions. So anyone who's in my Zoom environment, hang tight for me. I'm just going to wrap things up for my live broadcast here. I'm just going to check and make sure I didn't miss any comments or any questions so far. So I can see the comments in here. Oh, glad people are seeing that this has been helpful. So glad that people are saying that they're enjoying it. Oh, that's so good to see. One thing I would say for any of my folks in my live broadcast, remember you can watch this again. You can come back to it, as well as I just invite you to always sign up for our webinar Wednesday. It's a great way to come into our Zoom calls and get your questions answered. I love hanging out in there afterwards just to make sure I give that little bit of personal touch. But for all those that kind of hung out with me today, even if I jumped into the middle of your day in your schedule, thank you for joining us for the live broadcast, and we will see you later.